Ekrim should be the one back towards Huni. Question is Rumble Lissandra also going to get banned? And we get to see a fourth, a new pick, potentially, from Huni.
So far, you're 2 for 2 there.
Okay.
We have
Lissandra would then be the last one from H2k.
I think it makes sense if they want to just ban out the Huni. So Lulu and Sion taken away. Clear targeting Ottawamne, so a lot of top lane bans being thrown around.
Yeah, we got potentially 6 bans here against top laners.
I think so, and we'll have to see what the last one is. It ends up being the Shyvana.
Okay.
So they're leaving the Lissandra open after she's been, repeatedly chipped away at.
She's weaker
over patches, but still, this is a preemptive ban more than anything else. I'm really curious to see what the teams decide to go for first, because we have seen a lot of top lane picks. Not going to be the case this time, as everything's banned away. It's a Thresh first pick.
All right, so here's what Fnatic did in week 9 when these two teams played each other. They made sure Kasing picked Annie, who's a very immobile support, and then they invested so many ganks on the bottom lane from Raynova and from Huni, and it was very easy to pick up kills on Kasing, because he's just standing there as a small Annie doing absolutely nothing. Kasing ended up going 0 and 6. In that game. That was the first game where he honestly had a negative score. I remember all the fantasy players were talking about how they started him and he gave negative points, and it was horrible. That was the strategy. By Fnatic first picking Thresh, we know Kasing is about Thresh and Annie mainly. These are the two champions, Thresh and Annie. So by taking the Thresh here, potentially you put Kasing on that Annie and you can do the same thing. You camp that bottom lane super, super hard from Fnatic's side.
They won't have to. Well, maybe they will be thinking about it right away. If that is indeed the plan, I think we can probably expect standard lanes, just knowing the two teams and the way they want to play it out. The Gragas jungle pickup, no surprises there. It has been emerging in popularity, and Lulix has already played it once.
Lulix played against the Copenhagen Wolves, and that was a strange game from him because he had a terrible early game. He kept walking mid lane where they had a Diana from Ryu, and obviously against the Ahri and Rek'Sai from Copenhagen Wolves, they couldn't do anything 2v2. And he kept looking for these ganks here. He ended up dying for it as well. Had a very poor start to the game. But then in team fights, he had some very important ultis late game to knock back the carries here, make sure his own backline stayed safe.
That was the thing.
Exactly.
They had so many close calls.
He was a
the
big tank there and did a great job. So he's going back to this Gragas. I think it's a fantastic pick in the current meta. But again, look what Fnatic is doing. This is early game aggression. Kalista is one of the best AD carries in the lane. Pair her up with a Thresh against an immobile Annie in lane. Once you hit level 6 in this lane, you just throw Yellow Star in. He flays back, box, and that's a kill on Kasing. And also add in the Lee Sin. The early game for Fnatic here is absolutely insane already.
Fnatic is definitely coming out with something a little bit different. This is the first time we'll be seeing Rainover on Lee Sin. Steelback has had a couple of Kalista games. He's undefeated on it. It's just a few, but still. I'm really, really excited to see how this early game goes then. And this begs the question, H2k, do they maybe swap up tactics in the way they want to pick and in the way they want to play out the early game?
Well, if they do take standard lanes from H2k, they really have to be aware of all the focus going to be on Kasing or what their option for it. Because again, it's what happened in week 9. That's why Fnatic picked up all these early kills. It was simply onto Kasing and Yanan in the laning phase. If that gets locked in, it's a new one here in Europe. Zitai in China from IG has played it a few times in the top lane already.
The champion diversity continues.
Yeah, you can run Teleport Smite on it and go for Cinderhulk on the top lane Shen, but you can also run the standard Flash Teleport, which has been the more common one, at least a few times I have seen it in LPL, but it's basically a split pushing pick with double global. That's what you add in here, and it's a way of counter-ganking a super aggressive team that likes to tower dive, that likes to force fights. You have a Shen now with his ulti to quickly turn it around, and he can even get back to his lane with the teleport if needed. So this pick here from H2k, and this entire pick and ban phase, if you look at the setup, ignore the Annie for now. Sivir, obviously you want to mainly engage with her, but her mobility, her ulti also helps you if you have to kite back, if you have to extend the team fight and buy time for your team. You got disengaged from the Gragas if you want to use it that way, and you have this Shen here, which is so good for counter ganking. The laning phase is not going to be the greatest for Ottawamne in the top lane, but it's a big tank, and it's one that can punish Fnatic.
Wait a minute. I think we have a top lane Olaf.
We do. Smite Teleport, Cinderhulk, Olaf. You one-on-one me? Nope.
You see the meta evolve before our eyes right here. Yeah,
this is what I love as well about the playoffs. This is going to be so
interesting. This is going to be awesome. This is just game 1 Deficio.
Yeah, and of course Cho'Gath in the mid lane. New pick also for Febiven here. Mainly been playing the Assassins. We saw obviously Cho'Gath from Huni in the top lane against Elements in the last game. Didn't really do a whole lot for him. But really this Fnatic setup here, we're not talking a massive tank setup. You got the Cho'Gath, which is going to get fairly tanky from mid lane, and obviously Olaf is going to stack a sick amount of HP.
It's a bit bruiser-centric,
but
though.
It's super bruiser focused. It's very pick focused as well. Like you have 1-on-1 potential, 2-on-2 potential. You got that Lee Sin here, can play aggressive. Reynor, it looks to be playing the Olaf though. If you look at the summoners here, and then potentially
we might have
Lee Sin top lane.
Okay, that's another option too.
Well, that works
on
also with the
H2k's
Smite.
side. Yeah, they lock in the Diana for Ryu. So we have our comps fleshed out.
This is a tricky matchup for Ryu.
Yeah, well, I feel like this is a tricky matchup in general.
That's very true, but Cho'Gath normally can get kited fairly easily by the likes of, let's say, an Orianna. And Diana is going to have to sit in his face, being hit by his E all the time. It's very easy to connect the Q on Diana as well if you want to set up ganks with this Olaf here. So this is a bit of a risky one. Last time H2k ran this setup was against Copenhagen Wolves with Gragas and Diana, and they lost the mid lane. Pressure at least. Very, very hard to Airwax and Soren. That's going to be the same deal here. Fnatic is going to have control of the mid lane. They're going to have a fantastic bottom lane setup with the Kalista Thresh. And now this Lee Sin top lane. Not something we've seen a whole lot of, but it's a champion now that can run Smite Teleport, which is in the current meta of these top laners. If you have never seen it before, basically you build Skirmisher's Saber, which obviously gives you that 20% damage reduction. It gives you true damage as well when you smite the enemy here, so your 1-on-1 potential goes up. You build a Cinderhulk as well, 25 bonus HP, gives you even more gold if you go into the jungle. And the plan is basically you become extremely tanky in the late game, you have strong 1-on-1 potential, and you can invade into the enemy jungle now and take farm away.
Oh yeah, I'm excited to see how this one plays out. What do you guys at home think? We know the crowd's hyped up, but why don't you go ahead and hop on Twitter, hit us up at LOL Esports with that hashtag FNC win or H2k win. We're gonna see what you think into the game, but for right now, we're loading up onto the Rift. Fnatic versus H2k.
Absolutely love the new picks already, Pyra here.
Oh yeah.
From these two teams, at least in Europe. These picks haven't been seen before. The top lane Lee Sin with a smite, I love it. And let's see what Odoamne can do on a Shen.
We will indeed, but before we get to that, while we start this game off, let's hear quickly from Kasing about establishing vision in the early game and its importance.
By having vision of the enemy jungle is the #1 rule, like before I roam, because usually I don't want to face check into enemy jungler by myself, because jungler is going to kill me obviously, but I can also roam with the jungler, and by having me and the jungler together, it's like we can roam together, and then they're more likely not to contest us because we're already there. And by doing that, I can get vision easily, I can get ganks off, I can even gank with the jungler, so it's like 100% success rate instead of like a 50-50.
This fits in very nicely for these two teams because both Kasing and Yellowstar are two of the best supports in terms of roaming, and they have great synergy with their junglers, Reignover and Lulex here, in terms of invading into the enemy jungle here, get that deep vision down, and as Kasing mentioned himself, the ganks you can pull off. If you are 3 people ganking 1, suddenly you should be able to secure a kill nearly every time, especially when you have the likes of an Annie that can flash stun on a Cho'Gath in the mid lane.
Yeah, and you've got the Shen pressure too. I mean, his taunt, definitely something you can't underestimate.
Yeah, so this top lane matchup, I didn't expect this when I was preparing for the game itself. I like Shen in the fact that, yes, he's great to counter gang against these aggressive teams, but look what Fnatic is doing as well. Steelback is in the mid lane for them, so they don't want to put him on the bottom side. Meanwhile, we have Reignover and Febiven doing the Grump, while Reignover is starting on the red buff on this Lee Sin. Yellowstar invading in. They're trying to get all the information of where Lulex is started. So they know now he's either started on the Crooks up here on the top side, and then they're going to spot him when he goes down to red buff, or he started on the blue side over at the blue buff here for him and obviously Odoamne.
Yeah, so what Fnatic have effectively done here is, I mean, they've sent Febiven top to basically be a top laner as Cho'Gath can be, but they have 2 junglers effectively as a result of it, and no one's hanging out in the bottom side, so they're not losing anything for this. Now Huni going into the enemy jungle level 2, he's got the red buff. He could find Lulex here.
So let's just talk about this 2v1 mid, what it means. It basically gives you all control of the mid lane.
It's going
just
in.
having 2v1. Huni, forcing the flash. He's playing Lee Sin, so he's a lot stronger in the early game as well. And you have 2v1 against the Diana, a melee champion who's going to be stuck on the tower. Ryu is not going to be able to go anywhere from this mid lane. And by having the Lee Sin to invade, and his 3-man squad now of Febiven, Reignover, and Yellowstar, you control everything regarding jungle and mid lane.
Talk about controlling jungle at the same time that was all happening. Yeah, they sent 3, they go ahead and take out the red. Now, let's see what they decide to do, moving still into this jungle, taking away the Raptor camp.
I even said it was Reignover playing Lee Sin. I got so confused. It's Huni, of course. Huni doing the red buff with the smite, then invading in on Lulex on the Gragas. That was the top lane. Lee Sin for him.
Yeah, I don't know when we're
Reignover
going to
obviously
get
running with the Cho'Gath.
a semblance of normalcy in this game. The ward is down. That's going to keep Yarn and Kasing relatively safe if they can get out of harm's way. There goes the Boomerang Blade. Yellowstar is going to throw the hook preemptively, doesn't connect, and they're safe for now. Meanwhile, the bottom lane has been home to the 2 top laners. That's about as normal as it gets right now, Deficio.
Yeah, they are sacrificing Febiven a lot here from Fnatic's side. He's not been getting a whole lot of XP. He was still level 1 the last time we saw him. And obviously this top lane, he's going to be able to sit on a Cho'Gath and farm 2-on-2 with Yellowstar fairly well. But he's never going to be a big threat like we normally see from a mid lane Cho'Gath. He's going to get denied a lot of gold. Only sitting on 6 CS, where because it's now a one-on-one mid lane, Rio will be able to pick up some farm. It's still not easy for him against a Kalista in the early stages, but I was expecting Yellowstar, okay, he's here now, to stay with him, and you just push up the lane again, and you can go for the next invade if you want to on this Gragas here.
Right. With Yellowstar here, it's going to make it a lot harder for Ryu to really pressure back on Steelback.
Oh, he won't be able to do anything.
Even before, he was having a difficult time of it. Kasing and Hjarnan waiting on the brushes, seeing if they could bait Febiven into anything. They have kept him far back on the farm, but this is the acceptable loss that Fnatic have taken in this one. They're getting themselves ahead in every other regard, but they're mid laner.
If H2k can freeze the top lane now, then they make it very difficult for Febiven to pick up farm because he's already slightly behind. They're trying to set up a small freeze. They've now become quite an easy one because of this Q from Febiven. So they simply want to freeze the wave because then this Cho'Gath has to overextend in the lane, and he's against an Annie with a flash who can stun him, potential jungler coming in, and then you are dead as a Cho'Gath if you're caught that far up the lane. It also means Yellowstar has to come up and help him to make sure he can push out the wave and potentially reset it if H2k wants to keep the freeze. And that buys time now for Ryu to get farm in the mid lane. So what H2k is trying to do is force Yellowstar away from the Kalista so Ryu can farm. And look at the response here. Obviously the 2-on-2 lane from H2k is way stronger. So they're getting quite a lot of farm now on important members because of that.
Right, but on the other hand, Fnatic, they're able to two-man this dragon without really any chance of rebuttal from H2k, especially with their bottom lane in the top side. So it's kind of settled a little bit back into a pattern, with the difference being, of course, Febiven still sort of stuck up there in the top side, while Yellowstar's roaming between there and the mid. But first dragon goes over to Fnatic. Again, acceptable risks and losses. They are in a great position to start this one off.
Yeah, obviously a good call from Fnatic. When there's 2 guys sitting in the top side, they're AD carry and support, you should always aim for that early dragon. Start getting these stacks rolling for yourself. And if you look at the 2 compositions, because they're so new or so different from what we normally see. Oh, let's see the mid lane first. Ryu went aggressive.
Yeah.
Lulex is nearby.
Might be regretting it. There's the flash of the Steelback, however, as the body slam comes in from Lulex. Remember now, with level 6, Odoamne's got Stand United and Teleport available. So either of those could be utilized to try and get in the face and turn the tides of a Fnatic skirmish.
And because Yellowstar has been forced to sit and help Febiven in this 2-on-2 lane with the way H2k has been playing it, then he's not been able to get any proper wards in the river. You can see it's all controlled by H2k here. They got the Rift Scuttle, they got the 2 wards as well in the bushes. So Lulex can set up these ganks fairly easily. He's aiming for that top lane. We just talked about it before, how Cho'Gath can be caught out. Shen is coming as well.
Flash for Kasing, exhaust is down on him, but it's not going to be enough to save his life as Hjarnan picks up first blood. 7 minutes in, and Febiven scurrying for the safety of his tower.
Absolutely love the way H2k used the minions here to force Yellowstar to play passive. Nothing to spot Lulex. Shen ulti was used, not exactly needed. I think H2k were hoping to pick up 2 kills here. But then you have a teleport. You're back in your lane already from Odom. Let's see it again. Notice the river. It's all controlled by H2k. Finally, when Yellowstar thinks he can go to ward, well, there's a jungler. There's even a Shen killing him. And if you look at Fnatic's composition here, it is very mid-game focused. Lee Sin is a champion that will always fall off late game in terms of damage. He's gonna deal Kalista as well, struggles when it comes to killing big tanks in the late game, because you need so many stacks before you can take them down. And you often also build like BT, which is not very effective against the big tanks here. You need crit, you need single target damage if you want to take them down. Cho'Gath, very focused on his one-shot potential. which is also tough late game against a lot of tanks when there's an hourglass on the likes of a Diana. So it can be tough for Fnatic if this game goes late, where H2k has a lot more options. Diana scales really well into late game as well.
Yeah, and H2k have to know this too. If they can last in, they're not just trying to safely play out the early game. They're matching Fnatic's aggression blow for blow. And, you know, with that first blood, they get some definitely good gold onto Hjarnan here. He's in a very good position versus Steelback, who's now gotten up to the top side. Reignover's joined him there too, and so is Yellowstar. We'll see what happens going forward. Oh, face call. It's going to be Yellowstar. Doesn't quite get the play he wants.
Didn't get the play, no. And let's just highlight that H2k, in a matter of seconds, managed to adapt to this 2v1 setup in the mid lane from Fnatic that you clearly don't see very often. And they talked about how we need to bounce the wave on the top side, so they pushed the wave into the tower, let the tower kill all their minions, and then they started freezing it on the way back, forcing Yellowstar, as we mentioned a few times, to sit up there with Febiven, not being able to ward, not being able to invade into the jungle anymore, and not being able to deny Rio any farm. Look at the difference between him and Febiven here. That was so important and so well played from H2k, which has basically made them win the early game. And this Fnatic early game has backfired for them.
Yeah, the Dragon play looked really good, but since then they really haven't been able to accomplish much, and let's see if that changes. But Lulex, he's spotted down on the bottom side, trying to move into Fnatic territory. Reignover there as well. Steelback and Yellowstar are backed against the wall right now. They're going to have some assistance from Reignover in a moment, but let's see what happens. This tower's nearly gone.
And the mid tower from H2k, which was where they could have taken some damage due to Kalista being there, is taking close to none. So H2k is going to get a tower. Everything else from them is completely safe. And when you play against Fnatic, your auto turret is so important. Let's see what happens though.
Tibbers is down on the hunt, was popped. The smite went down. Reignover actually has to turn and run tail, but Kasink picks him up anyways. Talk about backfiring.
Yeah.
And that's a tower too.
Hey, we said before the game, for H2k, the important thing is trying to predict what Fnatic is going to do when these aggressive plays comes in. And if you can then turn it around. This was perfect, but that was also a mistake from Fnatic. Reignover diving in with the Ghost even after the flashes hit, took so much damage and then turned around way too late. H2k playing this so well. Lulex is around here just to secure Hjarnan and Kasing, potentially get down a deep water too as well. Meanwhile, Rio, happy just farming in the mid lane, bottom lane, nothing has been really done there. It's just been a farm phase. Lee Sin couldn't pressure this Shin. That's one of the things, if you run Smite as a summoner, not say an offensive one like Ignite or whatever, on the likes of a Lee Sin, well, you need that Skirmisher Saber before you really start benefiting from the Smite. That's completed now, but it's very hard for you to take down a Shen in a one-on-one anyway. When he will get some damage in the tower, seeing as H2k is swapping around the lanes, but I don't think he's going to be able to take it down in time.
Yeah, I think Fnatic realizing that they might have to do some serious damage control the longer this game goes on. Try to start pressuring those objectives. Huni unable to fully finish that one off. Meanwhile, back in the middle, Febiven still very far behind in farm, going to be held even further behind by the likes of Kasing now, who's joined Ryu in this mid. Let's see what he can make do. He is getting nice and big with the feast stacks, but still going to be a while before he can really finish anything off like a Rod of Ages or a Righteous Glory.
It's going to be Rod of Ages for him. Obviously
it's going to be a little bit later.
Damage. It's going to be fairly late for him in this sense. Hjarnan is caught way behind enemy lines, but here's the Shen.
Yep, the Shen has come on in. Let's see if that can make the difference. He's going incredibly low, and he just gets popped. Odo Omne has to back out. So Fnatic, they get themselves on the board there with the collapse on Hjarnan, and it is Dragon number 2 being attempted by them now. Yeah,
quite a mistake from Hjarnan, staying in the lane on his own while the rest of H2k were moving up the river to try and set up some Dragon Vision. Fnatic just ran in right behind him. You saw Odo Omne teleport in, but he wanted to escape.
Oh, they're going to look to still maybe take something back. Yellowstar is the target. Steal back the secondary one as Kasing picks up Yellowstar. Huni is going to get chunked pretty far down. Febiven flashing forward, gets the rupture as well as the damage coming in on Steelback. Ryu gets in, gets out, and ends up being a 2 for none. And H2k now is their time to take the Dragon.
And we're only 12 minutes in here, already quite a lot of kills and fights been happening between the teams. H2k, they stayed around that Dragon. We're gonna have to see in the replay who was out of position here from Fnatic, but they simply got split up. Some people stayed on the Dragon, some people tried to walk away, allowing H2k to get the kills. Let's see it again here. This is their Shen ulti on Yan, and you can see how Odo Amne, once he arrives, he doesn't want to taunt Fnatic, he just want to try and run away because this is a lost fight. Even Rainova is coming in the river here. They start the dragon. Let's see what's going on for Fnatic. Huni and Rainova stays on it while Steelback and Yellowstar is trying to run away, so they're now completely split up. Nice ulti from Kasing to start the fight. And with that quick kill, with all the damage Fnatic already took from the dragon itself as well, H2k can just get at least another one. Ryu playing it really well.
Oh yeah. Not only that, if you look at the way the fight prior to, or rather the collapse onto Hjarnan went, that Fate's Call seemed a bit unnecessary. If that had been saved by Steelback, Yellowstar might still have been able to make it out.
It's a very good point. Also, just the Fnatic have been on the same page, clearly.
Yeah.
I mean, half the team running away, half the team trying to finish a dragon.
This is looking like a very different Fnatic than what we're used to seeing, so...
Well, it's a Fnatic that had a clear strategy of going 2v1 mid lane, invade that jungle, take over the jungle with double smite. Keep in mind they're running double smite, so you have so much control of these monsters, these camps in there. You might even be able to get 4 buffs if you manage to deny the first one from being taken at level 1. But as H2k adapted to it and Febim was simply left really far behind, they had to try and save him, and that's what cost them. And obviously Huni didn't have any real pressure against the Shen in the one-on-one lane either. We're gonna see Odo Amna here can stack armor because he's not gonna be the target for a Cho'Gath to one-shot. And the rest of the damage here is gonna be mainly physical from Fnatic, from the Lee Sin, from the Kalista. So if Odo Amna just completely stacks the likes of Randuin's Thornmails on this Shen, he's gonna be near unkillable in the late game for Kalista and a Lee Sin. And that's gonna mean the fights for H2k is gonna be fairly simple.
Yeah. Well, even though despite all of that fan vote quite going in Fnatic's favor. Let's see if it stays that way as Huni kicks Kasing over the wall, taunting onto Steelback. They knock him back with the barrel. It's a game of ping pong with the Fnatic members. Huni, though, going very, very low if Odo Amne has his sights set on him. This fight is incredibly messy. Kasing able to sneak around the side
Ryu's on his way.
him off. Ryu coming in to see if he can clean this one up. Rainover going down. Yes, he does. It's over to Hjarnan. Kasing getting the stun off. Yellowstar, Febivin. Yellowstar flashing away. Febivin trying to stay alive, but it won't do a thing. And just like that, you've got a 3-0 in favor of H2k.
And the tables have completely turned here. H2k is normally not the team who keeps getting kills in the early to mid game. They get the towers. Now they got the towers, but they also got 7 kills on Fnatic. They're winning every single fight.
They can go for more here.
If you look at the items from Fnatic as well, they want to scale up in terms of what they've been building. Their Cinderhulk enchant early on from Lee Sin doesn't make him very strong in a big team fight. He needs the second tank item or third tank item to get the bonus HP from it. You got that newly completed Rod of Ages from a Cho'Gath. He's very weak at this point. These items here doesn't allow Fnatic to take big team fights when you already got such a fed Diana from Ryu, when you have a great start from a Shen as well, who's already extremely tanky. And H2k are just playing this near flawlessly. 7k goal lead from them. Let's see the fight. TP is coming in from both. Huni gets stunned instantly. He doesn't really have a whole lot of damage to add in this case. Kasing barely takes anything.
He's kicked to safety in anyways.
And this is why you run flash on the Shen, so you can taunt flash. You start the taunt animation, then you flash after. Now Kasing is dead for some reason on the tower.
Yeah, got hooked up by Yellowstar, and Fnatic take a moment to be able to get a little bit of damage on that tower as well as a pick off on Kasing. Much needed, but going back to the way H2k's played this game, with a part of a couple of mistakes that one of which we've just seen, it has been nearly flawless. The adaptation to such a strange and unexpected strategy has been incredible, and it's allowed them to get a massive lead in this game.
And we could see what Fnatic tried to do with the Lee Sin pick as well. I don't think we're going to see it from Huni if they manage to lose this game after the horrible start they've had, because H2k showed how to play against the triple smite threat, at least from the early invades. And that's obviously where Lee Sin adds nearly all his powers in the early to mid game. Late game for him, he's just going to be a bit of a tank. Not going to offer a whole lot else. Does have the insect he can use, but that's about it. So Fnatic clearly put so much effort into this early jungle invade, and it backfired. So they might have to change the strategy. This is what you can do in the best out of 5, however.
You can experiment a little bit.
You can
even
try.
If you find yourself down a game.
You can try a different and a new strategy in game 1. See if you can pull off a win. And if you don't, if the enemy team shows they know how to play against it, fine. You can go back to standard. This is not standard Fnatic in any way.
No, definitely not. So So we'll see if they can salvage this game or how it does turn out. We're 18 minutes on the clock right now. It's a dragon apiece, but the gold, the towers, and the kills all tell a big story for H2k. Big lead for them as they roam down to this interior bot tower. Kasing eats a sonic wave, but Huni's not going to follow through on that one. There are way too many team members of H2k here. Tower getting chunked down. Rainover trying to make a show of force, but it won't be enough to deter anyone. And H2k grabs that tower for just a few bites of their health bar.
Yeah, Fnatic wanted to trade 2 towers here. They didn't want to go down trying to defend this bottom lane once it already been pushed up. Odoamne obviously would have been able to join with the Shen ulti himself. So they wanted to trade. Now Huni is in trouble.
Yes, he is. He takes a lot of firepower. And Lulex throws the barrel.
Nice
It's
touch.
dodged, actually, and he kicks Lulex back. He might just live through this one. No, I spoke too soon as Kasing picks him up. Rainover getting chunked by Ryu, who gets an exhaust out. The barrel's rolled, and they have to disengage from this one. Huni does go down, but that is all for now.
Yeah, got 1 kill, got the tower before. They should be able to go back and take or defend their mid lane as well. Febiven is not having the game of his life. Not really 100% his own fault, simply by the way they were playing the early game. And when you're sitting on just a Rod of Ages Cho'Gath here, you're trying to just get some farm. You're 50 CS behind the enemy Diana. And you didn't even get to lane against her. It is not good for him, and Cho'Gath is gonna struggle getting to the point where he can really one-shot a target. Needs that Rod of Ages fully stacked, needs 2 extra items potentially before we really see him shine. What Ryu's doing as well is going for Luden's Echo on Diana, and this is a bit of a weird one because Diana normally is a champion where you need an hourglass fairly early on, so you can dive into the enemy backline, you can pop that hourglass, wait for your Q ulti a second time, and you become a bit of a bruiser mage. He's running at full damage, very, very squishy. However, it does give him an insane amount of burst in the early fights. And what you want to do is you have 100 stacks when you start the, let's say, a one-on-one. You throw the Q that procs the first Luden's Echo, and then you ulti in, you W your E, and your Q is going to be ready again. And by the time Q is ready, you should hit 100 stacks, and you proc it the second. If you don't, at least the Q will give you the 100 stacks, and then you ulti the second time, and that's going to proc it. So you get 2 fairly quick procs from the Diana in a matter of a few seconds, which is a lot of early burst damage. And what he likes to do then is go split pushing. So I would expect a Nashus to come in for him, potentially second and maybe third item, and purely focus on being a split pushing threat on Diana here, which is something he likes to do if possible.
Well, and there's so much pressure on really all the lanes right now for Fnatic that would drag them out even further. And H2k obviously not afraid to take these skirmishes. They know they're in an advantageous position to force the hand of Fnatic in any case they can. So we saw while there was a couple members defending the mid, the dragon was taken, so it's a 2-to-1 advantage for H2k here. 21 minutes on the clock as 3 members here, Lulex, Hjarnan, Kasing, and now joined by Odoamne. We're attempting to push this, but it got cleared very, very fast. And with all that pressure here, we're going to see what Ryu can do in the middle versus Huni.
Yeah, he can do a lot.
I think it is quite a lot. Huni's going to maybe try to push him back, but still.
Yeah.
Waves are starting to mount, but the map is totally controlled by H2k at this point. They are dictating the pace of this game for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, and what they're doing now, because Baron has spawned with 21 minutes in, is they focus on the top side of the map. That will give them control of the mid and top lane, and also Baron control, which you always have to respect. Because if they start a Baron or just bait it, it might force Fnatic to move out of their base and come in and try and stop them. And then there are so many wards from H2k to spot Fnatic all the way into the Baron, and they can just engage and get the right team fight for them, pick up a few more kills, and that's such a tough situation to be in for Fnatic. That's exactly what Kasing is trying to do here, just pushing Huni away. And I want to see what Huni's going to do in this Lee Sin now. Because the pick was obviously meant to snowball from the early game. That backfired completely. Now he's just building full tank with the Cinderhulk. But that means he's a tank with a very low amount of utility. There was a nerf to Lee Sin quite some patches ago where he no longer had the attack speed reduction from his E, which was a big deal for him in terms of his team fighting. Huni here is going to be all about kicking someone back to the rest of Fnatic and otherwise just be a tank, nothing else. And that's going to make this Lee Sin pick look extremely useless.
Well, and the issue is they've also got another fairly dedicated tank in Rainover at this point. Febiven, as you mentioned before, hasn't really had time to get the items he needs to scale up. So where are their damage threats? Right now, it's pretty much all on Steelback.
It is. And it's not even like he's fed on Kalista. Yeah, 2 kills is great for him. He's going towards Phantom Dancer, which I like a lot, instead of the Hurricane build we still see from some Kalista players. You need to get some crit if you want to take down big tanks. You need to focus your single target DPS. Otherwise, you're not going to do anything to the big front line. So I like the fact he's not aiming for that Hurricane as a second item. But it's still going to take such a long time because he's going to need a Last Whisper. Might even have to go for Infinity Edge late game now that he already has that Phantom Dancer to kill a tank. And that's 2 items which he's not going to get within the next 10 minutes, where H2k is looking to close out this game because they're already so far ahead. Rio, because he has so much gold, when he goes back you get another large rod. He's even going for Death Cap now. Second item. In this bot lane fight here is not going to do a whole lot. Just 2 tanks with no damage hitting each other.
So much armor on Ottawamne after he's completed his Randuin's Omen. And you're right, it's going to be incredibly difficult for Fnatic to really do anything here because their damage threats are going to take a while to get up to where they need, and the rest of their team by that time will have significantly fallen off in utility. So what can they really do here? I mean, they have to get a perfect engage, and even then I don't feel like they have enough damage.
No, yeah, as you said yourself, you gotta see if you can get a pick.
If they don't get caught first, Febiven getting knocked back into the team, getting pulled to safety, but in mid-transit, Ryu's gonna snipe him off. Yellowstar getting pulled back by the Fate's Call, but Rainover is not so lucky. They chase him through, get the stun off, and they're gonna go for broke here. The tower will chase away H2k for the time being, but with Febiven gone, it's starting to look like Baron time.
Yeah, we talked about this Baron here a few minutes ago from H2k. Why they put all the focus on the top side of the map was so they had this Baron control, and you saw Fnatic, they had to move in, had to get close to see if H2k were doing a Baron, and that forced a team fight from them.
Oh!
Yeah, that's a snipe. Ryu, he was on fire against Copenhagen Wolves. He was so good in every single game.
4-0 now.
That was 4-0.
After that Crescent Slash. Yes, indeed. Baron being started up. Do Fnatic have anything left in the tank? It's going to have to be a Huni steal. If anything, he's biding his time, going around the side. They're going to see him. He throws the ward in. They're going to be able to get the sweeper out to clear it away, but do they have enough to be able to make it happen? Rainover now has joined the party. The Baron's low. He gets Huni manages to pick it up, but can he make that play for his team? Steelback trying to kite, but he's going to fall down. That's a double kill now over to Hjarnan. They may have stopped the Baron, but they might lose everything here. Febiven going down to Ryu. 5th kill of the game for him. Oh my goodness, what just happened?
Well, what happened was that H2k didn't stop the damage while Sonic Wave was on the Baron. Huni got in, managed to steal it, but H2k clean up a few more kills for them. Might even be able to get a tower here with Kasing and Hjarnan taking it. I mean, that was, I guess, somewhat the least Fnatic could have hoped for in stealing that Baron, but at the same time, it wasn't even worth it because you gave up so many kills for it, and H2k doesn't need the Baron to win the game.
Yeah, if anything, yeah, they got it on 1 or 2 members. They denied it a little bit, but still trying to just take the Dragon now. They may not even be able to secure because Lulex is in here. It is going to get secured finally. Okay, so they get a second Dragon. They're doing everything they can to Fischio, but I feel like they've pigeonholed themselves. Let's see this Baron fight again, though.
So what H2k did was use the sweep on the ward here to disable it, and that's why Huni connects the Q to have their HP on the Baron. He jumps in with it, steals it. Right here, though, Fnatic should not fight. They should just let Huni go on a solo mission and say, try and steal it. If you do, fantastic. Everyone else is sitting back in base and waiting. If you don't, well, we were behind anyway. It doesn't really change a whole lot. But by Fnatic moving in with 3 guys trying to take a fight, that made this whole play from Huni completely irrelevant. And honestly, not even in favor of Fnatic, despite getting the Baron. Because these 3 guys here wanted to fight.
Yeah, with that, Fnatic down 10,000, almost 10,000 gold, behind 9,500, I should say, to H2k here. Let's see if Huni can make a play on Ryu. I wouldn't leave that brush if I were you. Oh, but he does. Gets the kick back in, though. Yellowstar and Rainover are there. The Flay's not going to connect. Exhaust is down the boxes as well. But in comes Kasing and Hjarnan. The tables are getting turned just so rapidly. And Huni pulled to safety, but Rainover not so lucky.
Poor Rainover. But like he's
not had a great game.
He's been left a few times and killed for it. And Ryu, 6 kills on Diana. It's not done yet, H2k. They're
not. Huni, he gets knocked in with the barrel. He's going to get taken down by Ryu. Ottawamne will fall, but so does Fnatic's inhibitor turret. Inhibitor being fired down next. 27.5 minutes in. H2k continue to press their lead against this Fnatic team.
This comp here from H2k with a Shen top lane, has been so effective at every single time Fnatic try to make a play. Odoamne would be there, help out the team. He's obviously building full tank. We talked about how he could just stack armor. I mean, look at this. Randuin, Sunfire, Thornmail. Who's gonna kill him? So, Huni gets the kickback on Riot. They're gonna try and just create one pick for themselves to buy time, but that's where the Shen comes in now. And then the rest of H2k with the insane mobility, Righteous Glory, Sivir ulti, can join in and pick up another kill for themselves. Yellowstar just stays alive. And really, Fnatic here just have no damage. The entire comp was relying on winning that early game through the 2v1 mid lane and then having this double smite to take over the jungle from H2k and snowball it that way. And that's why the comp looks so weak now from Fnatic.
I think that tower taken by Steelback a moment ago just pretty much reflects this game in a nutshell. That's their second. That's the first mid tower. It's 28, almost 29 minutes into this game. It definitely backfired massively. In a best of 5, yes, you can experiment a little bit. Clearly, this one is something that chalk up to the experimental failures. But Fnatic, they got to be thinking about next game at this point.
That's what you're doing, basically right here. You don't really focus too much on what's going to happen now in this game. You just start talking about, okay, what are we going to change in the pick and ban phase here? What's the Shen too annoying to deal with? Are we going to give them another one, and potentially another Shen game for Odoamne here? Is the Sivir maybe too strong? Is Diana too good of a pick for Ryu? How do we play the level 1 next time? That's obviously the big discussion for Fnatic at the moment. There were 6 top lane bans, if I remember 100% correctly.
Including the Shyvana.
Shyvana was the last one from Fnatic. From H2k, sorry. And we saw Lee Sin from Huni, we saw Shen from Odoamne. Clearly Odoamne had the better game, but that's not just because of the picks, there's also the way H2k played. We can potentially see the same bans from H2k. Hecarim, Shyvana, and the Rumble.
I don't see why not.
And try and push Huni again on either Lissandra or potentially a new top laner. The Shen obviously wasn't the one. Oh, the Lee Sin here. It's not been working for him.
They're going in. Tower, forget about it. Now they're going to be able to take it down. Rainover just trying to run a little bit of interference, but Inhibitor's starting to get chunked down pretty hard, even though that minion wave evaporates. There is another one with supers on the bottom side. H2k now will have the chance to take this one out. Fnatic just scattered, trying last-ditch defenses here, and Yellowstar gets ping-ponged around, but makes it out, grabs a hook on Lulex. Doesn't quite connect with the Rupture, though. Febivin tried to get it, but he forced the flash instead. Turret goes down at the Nexus. H2k just keep on pecking away at this base of Fnatic.
And this is the scary thing about both teams. They are so good at closing out games once they have that lead from the early game. In this case, it is H2k. We're 30 minutes in. 1 inhibitor left, 1 Nexus turret left as well. They can even play it safe and wait for another Baron to spawn, force a fight around that one, not let Huni steal it, and use that to close out the game if they don't want to go for any dives here. Only got the Sivir to really do range damage on the tower, but you're so tanky with the Shen ulti as well that you can just dive on Fnatic if you see an opening.
Yeah, there's really no reason not to. Fnatic definitely clearing the waves quite effectively, but they're still taking a little bit of damage here and there. They try to get the chase off on this H2k squad that's a little bit divided with Ryu out of the picture. Odoamne dashing in, gets the taunt off, trying to distract the rest of the members. Ryu comes around the side, pulls them all in. Lulex picks up Steelback. Meanwhile, Febivin, Rainover, and the rest of Fnatic are struggling to just stay alive. Rainover's gonna fall. It's Febivin standing alone, and that's not gonna make a difference because H2k is marching on the Nexus. 31.5 minutes into the game. They take down Fnatic in the most unconventional game 1 that I've ever seen.
Yeah, and this Fnatic early strategy completely backfired. You ended up leaving your own mid laner useless, honestly. He was so far down in farm compared to Ryu in the mid lane. And this choke I've picked in just did nothing. 193 CS for Febivin, 319 for Ryu on Diana, simply by them first freezing the wave, forcing Yellowstar to come defend, allowed Ryu to get a one-on-one lane in the mid lane against the Kalista, and just Febivin being denied so much. Coach Prawley here, looking very happy.
Give the man
after
some credit.
game 1. Or give the team some credit.
And the team, but I mean, being able to adapt on the fly like
yes. This is where
that is incredible.
This is where a coach can't really do anything unless they were expecting this level 1 or this early game from Fnatic. He can obviously talk. He
I don't think it was at the top of the playbook. Let's go with that.
He talks about the pick and ban phase. About, okay, what does Lee Sin top lane do here? He's gonna run smite. We expect it. What does it mean? And so on. But everything that happened in the game itself, that was all on the players here, adapting so fast to what Fnatic was doing and finding a counter to it. Really, really well played. I love the Shin pick against Fnatic. We talked about it 10 times, how it sets you up to counter gank everything Fnatic does, basically, with the Shen ult and then a TP as well to get back to lane if you need. And Fnatic really, they're not going to be too worried because this was a bit of a different level 1 where you can still go back. Yeah, it was.
They were trying something very, very different. Obviously, there was some heavy bans, and I don't think that will change too much at the top side, so it depleted the pool. What do you go to? Obviously, they had a very singular strategy to try and snowball early game. We talked about it quite a lot. But putting all your eggs in one basket, it does strike me as a little bit unnecessarily risky, but Fnatic is that team that will take unnecessary risks. Yeah. Not as much as some others, but I think in the game number 1, when you're coming in as a higher seed team, you can afford to take a few more risks.
Yeah, because the thing is, if you manage to pull it off and you win the game, suddenly H2k going into the next one is going to be like, oh, is Lee Sin, should we ban him so they can't do this? Or what was the key thing? And they're going to worry about it going into the game. So there is obviously good things and bad things about it. In this case, they lost here. I'm expecting more standard from Fnatic in the next game from them.
Yeah, I think that is something we can definitely count on. Now, with that game in the books and H2k 1 game closer to the finals, we're going to head over to the analyst desk for a look into that win.
Thank you very much, Pyra. H2k storming here in that game 1 and taking it. And so picks and bans were crazy to start off in this game 1. And to me, it felt like Fnatic had a plan in their head that they wanted to execute to a T, but the way the bans came out, they still held on to that plan, even though they couldn't get their hands on the champions they might have wanted.
I kind of feel the same. I think if you look at the early game strategy from Fnatic, they had a very clear jungle goal. They stuck Steel back in the mid lane on that Kalista to go 1v1 against Diana from Ryu. We don't have the bans on the side here, but it was 6 top lane bans. Maokai Lulu Sion from Fnatic, Rumble Hecarim Shyvana from H2k. And when you've got 6 top laners that have been played in the top lane, with the exception of that Shyvana, off the table, Huni's then forced to pick and choose where he wants to go. I don't think the Lee Sin did anything other than steal a few jungle camps. Yes, he stole some buffs at the end of the game, but they didn't result in anything in the bigger picture. So I think for Fnatic, they have to go back to a smarter pick and ban strategy. Cho'Gath, no impact. Steelback offered no resistance to Ryu's Diana, and by the time we hit 10 minutes, Ryu was so far ahead of Febiven in farm.
Yeah, absolutely. Like they went into the game with a game plan, and the H2k bans were pretty smart for that and kind of denied what they initially had in mind, and they didn't adapt pretty well. Fnatic, what Fnatic should do is go away from what they initially planned and go back to their standard game, what they're best at. The Shen pick on the other side is perfect against everything that Fnatic usually does. Early game rotations, early game pressure, early game teleports, and once that Shen hits level 6, he's able to counter gank just everything.
I completely agree. There's one small caveat. There was a pretty terrible TP bottom lane, that Odo one they had, or Stand United rather, where he came in to try and save Hyanin. It didn't work out. Now, because of some positioning mistakes and some great play from Kasing around the Dragon immediately after, it didn't hurt H2k, but there was some team fight small mistakes against the Copenhagen Wolves last week that could have been punished, and if Fnatic had a slightly better comp or slightly better positioning, that mid-game could have gone quite differently as well. So I like it in theory, but they've got to be very, very careful not to make those mistakes.
The theory is great, but the execution... rather not so.
And I think you hit the nail on the head when you say, okay, Odoamne instantly realized that that was a bad TP. He ran away, and they already set up to come back because they know that Dragon would be up 1 second later. And as you said, crucial in that one is Kasing, the way he engages, the way he plays in general. Let's get a replay up on the screen because we can't praise him enough in this one on his Annie. So lethal.
You know, last week we touched on Kasing and Ryu, and there was a big debate who should be MVP. Look at the reaction time from Kasing on this Annie. I think he's the best Annie in Europe. I called it out last week and then he failed, but this is a good reasoning. Double stun from Tibbers as soon as Hyanin gets away. H2k are going to turn this gank around and actually pick up a kill when it was Fnatic initiating, Fnatic starting the engage. Kasing on his Annie single-handedly defeated SK during the regular split, and there's going to be another team fight here where his positioning and his read on the fight is just so good.
Yeah, absolutely. He gets kicked into the blue buff, as we see here, and then he just reads the team fight perfectly. He knows that his team is capable of holding them in the river. So what he does is he goes back to the gap where they go if they try to run away, and then he just picks them off. As we see here, the kill coming in on Huni. He's fairly even, so just one auto attacker Q does the deal. And then he just closes the gap where Fnatic guys try to escape, and he ends it up. It was a terrible team fight for Fnatic already, but this just makes it dramatically worse.
Yeah, and the thing that's so impressive is that Fnatic were the team that were meant to be aggressive. Fnatic were the team that we're expecting to be super in-your-face, super fighting. But it was H2k that was doing it this game. Almost any opportunity that Kasing found, he was flash engaging, he was flash stunning, and all of H2k responded. Ryu by the end was so fed and could clean up, but it was all, in my opinion, led by Kasing on that front line, reading Fnatic and moving around the map.
Absolutely. But with those picks, what early game aggression can you expect? You got Shogoth in the mid lane, who's not known for being like the most aggressive early game champion in the game. Then you got Huni on Lee Sin, who had, like, quite frankly, no impact on the game. I mean, he was just like a kickbot then later on. He had nothing to offer. And then you had Kalista in the mid lane, who quite frankly didn't get the lead that he was supposed to get. If you put the Kalista against the Diana mid game, usually you should have more impact on her.
All right. Well, to illustrate how good it went for H2k and how bad for Fnatic, usually at 10 minutes in, H2k is not ahead in gold. This time they were almost 1,000 gold ahead at 10 minutes. And at 20 minutes, they were ahead 6,679 gold. And we thought that it might be the different scenario. They might fall behind at 20 and not be able to fight back, completely turn the tables.
Completely. I mean, H2k came out the gate swinging. Let's be very honest. Fnatic went all in on a risky team composition, right? They pick champions that is relatively new in a style that is relatively new. As Dentis has already said, it's not that trademark aggression that could come from Fnatic. Their early game, let's say the first 3 minutes, went to plan. And then nothing happened, right? They didn't get the leads. They didn't stomp their lanes. H2k just mechanically outplayed them. So that all-in strategy backfired already by 5 minutes. I think if they go back to a more standard team comp and style, we shouldn't see that same drastic lead in game 2, and it should be a more competitive, even grounds.
Especially knowing that they were 2-0 up over H2k when they ran those compositions that they liked. So we'll see what they go for. And as the team is ready up for game 2, we'll hear from Fnatic's surprise star on what it's like to go from being a familiar face in Korean solo queue to being the fan favorite of the European LCS.